Hey friends, it's Kari from the Alfred Homestead, and today I am showing you how I make my all-time favorite soap for my family. Not only is it very affordable, but it's natural and organic, free of all of those nasty fillers that you find in most soaps today. So here are the materials that we will need. So I use one of these heavy-duty pitchers. It's the number 5 on the bottom if you look at the recycling symbol. That is generally the best plastic that you can put your lye into because lye is very caustic and that thermal heat will melt through any thin plastic. So please, please, please be very careful. So we have two very easy to find oils. Olive oil, this is the Kirkland brand. It's the cheapest that I find. Don't worry about getting the extra virgin, okay? It's just gonna be in the soap. Coconut oil, here is the lye that I buy. And keep in mind, everything that I have here, I will link in the description box for you. Make sure that your lye is not out of date, okay? I have a thermometer here. One of these instant reads is really simple to use. We are going to need a scale, some gloves, some thick gloves preferably, an immersion blender, definitely cannot make soap without that, just a spoon to help get some of that coconut oil out, and of course some molds. Some silicone molds, I find they are awesome. You can find them at the thrift store. I bought these both for $1 each. Very handy with soap making. Use whatever molds you want. And a slow cooker. I am using my Instant Pot today. That's what I use and I find it very effective with making soap. So the first thing that I like to do is to go ahead and melt my oils together. Now this soap is super easy because we're only using 2 soaps. Coconut oil is wonderful in soap for creating that lather, while the olive oil has a really great property for hardening the soap so that it's long lasting. So in this case, we're getting both essential qualities for an awesome soap that not only will withstand all of the showers and all of the little ones using them, but also still provide a nice rich lather that we all love so much. So I clear out my scale, of course, once I've got all of my coconut oil in the pot. Now I'm going to go ahead and pour in the olive oil. Now I am tripling this batch. The recipe will be linked in the description box for you guys. The recipe is for a 2-pound batch of soap. So they're roughly equal parts. I think there's a little bit more olive oil than coconut oil in here, which I like because again, that olive oil helps to ensure a hard bar that's not going to just melt after a couple of uses. So, and you want to make sure you weigh everything with the scale. You're not doing by volume, you want to do it by weight. We need to be very precise with this. Now, for the most part, you don't have to be absolutely perfect. I know I am not, so don't come at me in the comments, people who are really excellent soap makers and making artisan soaps, and all of that is wonderful, but there is some room for error in this easy, everyday kind of soap. It's not the prettiest soap. It doesn't smell perfect. You know, it just smells like plain soap. You can, of course, add your own fragrances later in the process, but I just am a busy mom, and this is my go-to easy to make soap. So I put it on the crock pot, I put it on slow cook on high, and I put a little thermometer gauge in there so that I can check when the temperatures are about 100 to 110 or 120 degrees. Because we're going to let this heat up slowly rather than quickly because it's really easy to overheat oils and it takes forever before the oils cool off enough, because when we put our lye solution into this, we generally want to have them about the same temperature. So what I like to do, the slow cooker will just, I'll turn it off when it reaches the temperature and it'll stay warm, it'll stay to temp as long as you just keep it in the slow cooker. So now we're going to measure out the lye. So I get this from Amazon. It's about 15 to 20 bucks depending on when you buy it. It will last you a very long time. Just be very careful with this. Be very careful that there's no littles around who are going to think it's salt or something, because it will have consequences. Thermal burns are not fun. So again, I'm just going to be very exact here. I like to just use a soft plastic container for measuring out the lye. That way when I pour it into my water, it's not too hard to make sure all of the granules get in there. So I'm going to measure out my water now. and I'm putting that into the pitcher. And I'll tell you why I use this pitcher. I used to use one of those Pyrex measuring cups. Don't use it. I've heard so many horror stories about how it shatters and it gets all over the floor, and you're talking really hot thermal burns now with that lye solution. So I have found that the pitcher is actually the easiest and safest way to make your lye solution. I bought this at the thrift store for $1 and I only use it for soap. So I'm just going to be putting my gloves on now that I'm going to be making the lye solution. I use my funnel, that way I can just easily, without spilling any granules on the counter, pour the lye into the water. You always want the lye into the water, not the other way around. Be very safe here because the chemical reaction that occurs when lye hits the water is very instant. You will see some fumes, and that is to be expected. Don't be alarmed. I just put the cap on briefly, just while I gently swirl this mixture. I don't like getting a spoon and getting my hand in there. I really like to do it over the sink, just in case anything happens, you know it's in the sink contained. Now this is going to get very hot very quickly, so I take the lid off as soon as possible, and you will see that it needs to vent. This is generally when I go ahead and take it outside to vent, or get the windows open, have a fan blowing, something to just kind of vent it out a little bit. It's only for about 5 or 10 minutes that it needs to vent, however. So after those initial 10 minutes or so, you can bring it back inside, or you can close up the windows or whatever. I generally like to put it outside because I lock my kids out so that they can't touch this. And you will see it's getting very hot. Okay, so we're gonna let this cool down so that it basically comes down to the temperature of our oils. Now again, people don't come at me in the comments please, but I have done this numerous times where the oils are less hot and then the lye mixture. Like the lye mixture might be 20 degrees or 30 degrees higher than the oils when I mix them. And that's honestly okay. You see, the oils are at 100 degrees, and my lye mixture, after sitting for about an hour, is at 119 degrees. That's okay with me. I've never had an issue making soap this way with having a 20 degree, a 30 degree difference. Just for good practices, if you want to be perfect about it, then of course make sure that they both come down to about the same degrees. So I put my immersion blender into that pot, and I very slowly pour the lye mixture that has cooled down onto the stick so that it doesn't splash up. You'll see it's quite viscous though, so at this point it's not too much of a danger, but again, keep your gloves on if that feels safest to you. But generally the worst part of that is over, and I find that this is where it pretty much is easy downhill. Because now we're just gonna turn the immersion blender on, and I turn it on, I let it run for about 5 seconds, I turn it off and I give it a mix. And I turn it back on for about 5 seconds and then I give it a mix. And that's generally how I go about it for the first couple of minutes as it's just getting blended together. And then once I see that it's starting to coagulate, to thicken a bit, then I just let it go and I blend straight for about 5 minutes. You're looking for trace. This is what trace looks like. It's like a thick pancake batter, and that's when you know you have mixed enough. It might take a little bit longer, but generally 5 to 10 minutes. And that's it. Now you just want to pour this in your molds carefully again because it is still very hot. So pour them into your molds. I find it easy if you have to move your molds after this. Put your molds first on a cookie sheet. That way after you pour the soap, you can easily transfer the soap to another designated area, because you want to let this soap sit for anywhere from 2 days to a full week inside that mold before you pop them out. And it still, even after those few days, might be sticky to the touch, but you will be able to then cut it into the sizes that you want to then cure on your counter or just any cool dark place that's aerated for about 4 to 6 weeks before you use it. So again, this soap was super easy to make. with ingredients that are easy on hand with the exception of the lye, which can easily be found online. And the whole cost of this soap for 6 pounds of soap was $26. This will provide an entire year's worth of soap for my family. For the regular 2 pounds, for just the bread loaf pan, that is 2 pounds of soap. That's what that looks like. That's about $9, just to give you an idea. But for clean, healthy soap that my family can use, it's a wonderful recipe. I rely on this year after year. It has just enough hardness to it to withstand the showers and the bath times, but also enough lather that we really enjoy using it for our hands and for our bodies as well. And you can see after just a few days how it's still a little tacky and a little sticky, but that's okay. They're going to sit and cure and they will harden up just fine. I hope you guys enjoyed that recipe. Let me know your favorite down in the comments below. Thanks for watching.